What's up, Bitcoin Radio? It's that time again. I've got a awesome show in store. Galen Danziger, he's the CTO of Mousebelt. Everybody knows Mousebelt. I've mentioned them several times. They're also the parent company of Bitcoin Radio. And I was able to pull away their CTO, one of the busiest guys in all of development and blockchain, maybe in the world. He's going to laugh at that. But Galen is also a friend of mine. And I've been honored. I've been privileged. I've been really excited to get a chance to get to know him. I've also been able to learn from this dude. He's got a lot of wisdom. He's got a lot of knowledge. And he's a little bit funny too. Y'all will see soon. Some of you have seen him. I've actually interviewed him on video before. And he's just really, he's got this really great ability to conceptualize and explain the space to everybody, whether you are a high-end developer and you understand the tech at a really, really high level, or if you're just, Joe Blackburn, who's not a developer and not in this space as any technician, period. I love the social media side. I love Bitcoin. I love the politics of Bitcoin, and I love the ideology. But it is not in me to understand how to write code. Fortunately, Galen understands those types of people like me and you, for the most part, and he's going to be able to break some things down. But we got a lot of fun stories today. Some of you may remember in that initial interview, he told us a little bit about his first encounter with Ethereum. And that encounter was not a small one. That was Vitalik chilling, hanging out, sleeping at his place, at his apartment, while this little thing called Ethereum was being created. And, I'm not going to tell the story for Galen, but these are the things that I enjoy. I mean, like it's like sitting around the campfire, at camp, and you hear these really cool ghost stories or whatever, or you hear these really cool adventure stories, and it just captivates you. When you sit around Galen, you get to a point where you're like, just like in awe, like you just listen to what this is. So I'm really, proud to have him on, but I really enjoy being able to explain to him or explain to you guys, what he's been doing on this level. Like for my introduction to him, he's probably going to get on and be like, shut up, Joe. I don't want to hear all this stuff about me. Let me just talk. But regardless, anyways, Galen, come on, man. What's going on, dude? Welcome to Bitcoin Radio, finally.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be here, Joe. It's a pretty busy week. Everyone getting back from Burning Man, everyone's getting back to it all at once, but glad to be here.
Man, like with everybody, like you're in the San Francisco, you're in the Bay Area, right? And, the Burning Man is obviously a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal for a lot of people across the United States, but specifically in that area. I mean, like, does the city just empty out during Burning Man?
Oh, surprisingly, yeah. It's at least in my office, I'd say, because we're in a co-working space, the blockchain center and all the Mousebelt team, we're in this sort of corner of this larger co-working space. The whole place just emptied out. Everyone seemed to go to Burning Man from San Francisco. I guess it started in San Francisco, but everyone just empties out to the desert.
No, first off, I guess it's close by San Francisco, right?
I think, well, it's a good ways away. I think it's actually...
I've never been, so...
Yeah, I think it's actually like hundreds of miles away. It's definitely a pretty long drive.
Okay, so clearly both me and you have zero experience with Burning Man. That's the easiest way to put this. And I'm glad that everybody out there is having a great time.
Yeah, no, I haven't gone yet. There's a surprising amount of people working in cryptocurrency that I'll go. Like I heard Brock Pierce was there. He was in this some sort of like Bitcoin camp. They were doing, I heard all sorts of things like weird satanic rituals to drive up the price. Who knows?
Well, clearly, whatever they did worked because Bitcoin's obviously had a nice little run. I think we're at 10.7 right now. And so, a lot of people were calling for $8,000, $7,000 the other day. And I mean, it's just always funny to me that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to the price of Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah, no, predicting the price of any market is really, really hard to do. And Absolutely. Many times you're incorrect more than you're correct. If you're correct more than you're incorrect, you could make a huge amount of money, but most people don't.
Oh, of course, the problem is that we're all greedy, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
hey, it's like this, Galen. If I said, "Hey, Galen, here, do you want $100?" You'd be like, "Yeah, man, give me $100." So you go to the BitMEX gambling casino, the Great Bitcoin Exchange, and you go and you make $100. But guess what? Now you made $100 and you're like, I can make $1,000. So it's time to go back to the Great Bitcoin Casino, the gambling machine of BitMEX, with Sir Arthur, running the show, hitting the liquidation button, which is, by the way, is not true. I don't want to put that on Arthur. I don't know if it's true. I'll just put it to you that way.
Yeah, no, there's the greed generally drives markets. I think that's the big driving principle.
I mean, to an extent, everything we do is for greed, right? Well,
Yeah.
not everything,
No,
but
well, yeah, no, I mean, there are definitely people very altruistic out there, but I mean, the whole way all of the pricing works, the security in Bitcoin, everything is based around everyone acting in their own self-interest.
so, Galen, I'm really excited to have you on, man. I believe, so much about the developing space and the developers just in general. You're the architects of the giant buildings, the giant projects, the giant everything that's going to come out of this space one day, right? The Netflixes, that are beating out the blockbusters back, 15 years ago. You're doing that right now, one way or the next. You're contributing to that next growth. And, and for the audience listening, Galen is not, like, as I said in the introduction, he's also a friend. He's not just a developer. He's not just someone I know. I consider Galen a friend. And, as Galen, as being a friend of mine, I've been witness and I've been privileged to listen to him tell stories, and hear some of this. We're going to get to this here shortly. But Galen, let's go ahead and start with a little bit of your background. Like how long have you been a developer? And, obviously we can keep this quick, but, kind of give us some background on who you are and what you've done.
So, yeah, I guess about a decade now, I've been doing software development, starting with like internships, or I was doing stuff for research, and I got more into doing like probability and financial based programming while I was doing research, because there's a lot more money in and like ways to find a job if I'm doing like modeling for casinos. Sure. Rather than trying to predict an earthquake, which is still people don't think you can really do, according to the USGS at least.
Do you think they could do it?
Oh, I mean, I think eventually we might be able to, but right now we cannot reliably predict an earthquake. And it's been the same way for about 100 years.
And it's probably going to be the same way for another 100 years if you really had to guess, if I had to guess. But yeah, eventually, hopefully, the technology will allow that, or just prevent them altogether.
Prevent altogether would probably be very tricky, but they're maybe knowing when they're more likely to happen. That kind
just
of thing.
Code something, Galen. Just code something, a predictable algorithm that tells us, and we can all get out of there, right?
No, they even when people have an idea about how systems that complex might work, there are just so many small little things that all interact with each other, and if you get one inaccurate measurement that just cascades and cascades and cascades, it'll throw the whole thing off eventually. So
that sounds so marvelous.
Yeah, like weather. It's really hard to predict weather more than 10 days out, because you have all these, when you're measuring things, there are all these small inaccuracies on the instruments, and things interact with themselves over and over so many times. It becomes really hard to accurately predict things a long span of time out.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Anyway, moving on from
earthquakes.
Yeah, earthquakes. I did programming like a bit all over the place.
Galen, hold on. You should be called Earthquake. That's a cool name, bro. Look, and just for everybody listening, I was like trying to like give Galen a nickname before the show. I was like, man, I need a cool name to call you, bro. You are the Earthquake developer, bro.
The Earthquake.
Earthquake.
Okay, that could be.
That's a cool name. One. All right, Earthquake, let's go.
All right. So I started branching out a little bit. I got into some things related to payments, some IoT stuff, and my first introduction to blockchain was actually when I'd been in San Francisco at the time. I just got there, and I was staying in this sort of hacker house type setup, which was basically just a bunch of people all around my age, like early 20s, all in a house.
What year was this?
This was 2013, 2014 that I was there. SF rent was just way too much money. So you get a lot of these people just sort of piling into a place. Some are working for tech companies. Some are working for like startups. A lot of people just sort of like writing code, doing some cool things. And this particular one was called the Negev. You could actually find it in the news. They were various like local people in San Francisco that really didn't like it.
Wait, so like they would come after you?
Well, they just, I think it was originally either a church or some sort of like housing for people who who couldn't like afford it, and then we sort of took it over and turned it into a tech house.
Hold on, so like really yeah, so like what happened is like this was a place where other people were staying out of like a charity situation, and apparently the owners were, or they either sold it or they started renting it out, and then you guys moved in.
Yeah, when we moved in, it actually, I think it ended up being not up to code at all, because it was a bunch of kids who didn't know the most about building codes and everything else, sort of converting this house. So
were y'all like sharing rooms? Like, I mean, like you said, piled in, like, was it like 4 to a room, or, I mean, like how did this work?
It was, I think it was like either 1 or 2 in a room, but we were definitely pretty piled in. I'd say there was probably like 50-ish people there.
50?
Yeah. I mean, we had this, it was like this 4-story, like abandoned church that had been rented out, sort of turned into like a giant apartment place.
That sounds like a fraternity house for developers.
It almost was. It was a really cool place though.
Okay, wait, so, and just so we don't lose everybody, because although I'm really enjoying the story, and I'm sorry for my peanut gallery commentary, I'm actually not that sorry because it's really fun. But this is where a certain individual was staying, right? Sleeping wherever you guys could, just like you.
Yeah. So there was Vitalik actually stayed with us for a little bit.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I didn't know very much about Bitcoin or blockchain or very much at all about any of that. We did have one guy who was working with BitPay at the time. He was one of the early engineers, a few other people who were early on in some fairly prominent companies now. He was there, and he said, he was talking about, here's why we need Turing complete, like a Turing complete language on the blockchain. And my first thought is, what's a blockchain? What is this? How does it work? He was going into this explanation, like his first example, I think, made me think it was like really, really sketchy. He was talking about like using a smart contract. If you're going to like do a deal with someone and you were afraid they're going to kill you, your smart contract would hire an assassin to go after them. Like,
that's a really cool first impression.
Yeah, I think he's got the sales pitch down way better now. But it was the first example. I was like, wow, it's actually really cool that anyone can then execute this code, even though it seems like it might just be used for like drugs or something.
Which it was, especially that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Silk Road really blew it up. And then he talked about it. We actually had everyone in the house. He was like downstairs. He was giving like a lecture on it. He was just talking everybody's ears off about here's why we need Turing complete code. I think he'd been writing articles in Bitcoin Magazine at the time. And I think he originally wanted to implement it.
This is Vitalik.
Yeah, this is Vitalik. He wanted to, I think, update Bitcoin or make this a upgrade to Bitcoin, and then he eventually did it for Ethereum. He made his own thing. He did a pre-mine and he sold tokens to fund the development. I think, I mean, it was less than $1 per ETH, so I really, really should have bought in, but I didn't.
No, it was like a dime per ETH.
Yeah, it was something crazy.
Okay, so hold on, and not to interrupt you, Galen, but this is a really cool situation and a cool story, especially because, Vitalik is kind of one of the spokespeople for this space, right? He is, he's a developer, of course, and he speaks at a really high level, but, as young as he is, what is he, 24, 25? I think, something along those lines, but he is recognized and he is asserted as, as an individual who speaks for the blockchain space, right? And I don't think there's a better person right now who could handle that position. I think Vitalik takes it very seriously, and I think he does a great job. But you're sitting there with 20-year-old or 21-year-old Vitalik. Was he? I mean, I can't imagine him being much skinnier, but especially back then when he had no money, I'm sure he was a little skinnier. And y'all are sitting there in your developer fraternity house, and he's giving lectures to the 50 of you or whoever was there, on why this should exist. That's correct. I understand that, right?
Yeah, that was exactly it. He was just telling everybody, like, here is why a blockchain is useful. Here's why we need to have verifiable code. He was talking about how you could write code. He was talking about smart contracts, all of this stuff. It was really cool. It sort of got me sucked into it.
And Galen, what did you think when the first time, be honest here, what did you, like outside, after you got through the first initial impression of the drug world and how you could use the smart contracts, what was your actual thought once you kind of, sat down and really listened to this?
Well, I mean, verifiable code sounded really cool. Like I could have something that all parties could observe, run the same code, verify that somebody sent something or sent a message somewhere, just some interaction. Everybody could be informed or verify it for themselves, which was really cool. And sending money that way is great too. You don't rely on a bank or anybody else to hold your money.
Absolutely.
As I got more into it, I ended up buying some Bitcoin. I didn't really know at first very much about like managing keys, managing a wallet. So one of the first things I did was put it on Bitfinex, which was not very smart because they got hacked like pretty soon afterwards. So,
Of course. And, it's a lesson for everybody, though. Like, we hear about, I think one of the most recent major hacks was the Cryptopia hack. I guess that happened a little bit, 6-8 months ago, something like that. And, Cryptopia, obviously they should have been a little bit better prepared for this, but, everybody's been hacked. I mean, it's not unusual in this space to have some really bad news, right? We've been dealing with it since really the existence, whether it be, Satoshi no longer being around, which I consider bad news, whether it be, Mt. Gox, whether it be Silk Road, whether it be, Bitfinex, like you said, and, all the way up to, the parity. And, this is something that me and you have talked about on camera before, but this is another amazing story. But no, actually, I don't think me and you've ever discussed this publicly, but a lot about that parity hack, don't you?
Oh yeah. That was another thing that happened pretty early on, and that was just an interesting thing to see all of the developers like interact after that, because a lot of these things,
there were entire projects that had everything in that wallet.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely. They're like it was sort of the standard for a multi-signature wallet.
$280 million was lost of Ethereum on that hack, or on that. Well, I'll let you describe what actually happened. I'm going to shut up. You just tell this story. How about that?
So I guess first some background on the Parity wallet. If you want to use like a multi-signature wallet, which is basically I give my approval, someone else gives their approval, maybe a third person gives their approval. And for any transaction that I send, it needs to be authorized by some amount of those people. You'll define that with the wallet. So
give me an example of why you would need that, though. Like, just to break it down really simply.
So if you want to make sure, say you have 3 people in a company and you want to make sure 2 people check off any expenditure before it goes through. So say you, me, and Patrick were all in a company, and we want to make sure that no one person could just empty the company treasury and buy like a Lamborghini or something.
Lambos.
So, yeah. So it's...
Galen, don't you have a Lambo?
No, sadly, no Lambo.
Don't lie. But yes, he doesn't have a Lambo. But anyways, keep going.
So it's a great security mechanism. Like things that you might set up with like a rule, like a set of rules, or hire a trust to hold your money and let you withdraw it under certain conditions, you can write straight into your wallet, which is a really cool system for sending money, authorizing transactions. Absolutely. It's built into Bitcoin for free. You can just make a wallet, no extra work you need to do. Ethereum, you have to deploy a smart contract to do that, which is kind of a pain. You have to like get your environment ready to deploy a contract, remember where it is, initialize everything correctly. They cut down some of this work by taking the library that everybody needed to use with all the functions for that multi-signature wallet. And that was supplied by Parity. And then you could deploy your multi-signature wallet and reference functions from that library.
So in this case with Parity, there's a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of money inside this wallet, and it was trusted as an Ethereum, as an Ethereum custodial wallet for these companies to hold. Now, as we all know, $280 million got just destroyed. And I guess we can get in a DAO hack after this too, because that was on an even larger level. I would consider that even a bigger level. But as far as parity wallet went, and I know a lot of you, especially those in CCT that have been around for a long time, you remember the parity hack, because there was a lot of projects that we personally knew, that people that had been around, that were affected. But, what I think is so funny, well, actually, Galen, tell me why this was such a unique situation.
So, I mean, this one, everyone just sort of trusted this dependency. It had been put out by the parity team. Everyone thought like, okay, this library works. There's nothing that could go wrong here. I'm going to use this because I don't trust myself to deploy it. And what happened is one guy managed to gain control of that library that everybody was relying on.
Was this intentional?
Kill it. I mean, there's chat logs where he was doing it. I think he was just testing out different things. And you can actually find a GitHub issue where he was filing with parity saying like, hey guys, I accidentally killed your wallet. The guy's name was DevOps.013. And like there's this whole chat thread of all these programmers where he's like, sorry guys, I accidentally killed it. And then he put out like a shrug emoji on Twitter later.
Do you think he understood the gravity of what had just happened?
I think at first, I don't think he did. And then I think eventually they realized like this took out everybody's money. But the first thing he did was file a bug report saying like, hey, I think I accidentally broke something.
Oh my God.
He filed a bug for it to get fixed. And eventually realized, and now it could be that this guy was malicious, was just sort of messing with people afterwards saying, oh, what a mistake. I accidentally deleted all your money.
Galen, what do you think?
I think the guy was just sort of messing around, calling different functions on contracts. Definitely, if he gained control of the contract, he should have reported it to their team and not done something bad with it, or given everybody some time to move their money off.
Do we know who DevOps is?
Yeah, this DevOps.199, no idea. No one really has any idea who he is. I think the Twitter account's still active, though, so you could look him up and see that little shrug emoji.
Oops. That's what I think about. Oops. But, that's brings up an interesting, point, like, exposing these vulnerabilities, right, as a developer is part of your job, right? It's not like it's not part of your everyday, dealings. Like as a developer, not only do you need to be able to build things, you need to be able to fix things. You're a construction worker, you're an architect, you are a doctor, you're everything that has to happen for that code. But Galen, like, I know this as a person who cares about others, I would never intentionally destroy that much of a series. I mean, like, unless you're an Ethereum holder, I guess you just lost $280 million worth of ETH, which is good for the holder. But I mean, in all reality, like that sucks really bad. And you just ruin people's lives. So I mean, like you're in this space, man, you're a developer. You hear how these people talk. You're on the forums, you're anonymous somewhere, right? You're not going to tell us who you're anonymous with or where you're anonymous at, but you're part of this developer hacker, dark, deep, awesome web. And you could do whatever you want. And people have no idea how freaking awesome the power that you hold is. I mean, how many developers do you know that would actually maliciously do this?
Well, I think there are definitely people who would maliciously do this, but after especially the parity incident, that sort of exposed people are blindly trusting developers a lot. So one thing that wallet hack did is it prompted people to start to engage security groups to perform code audits. And then maybe you would invest in a smart contract when you see there's like a signed audit report saying that it works all right. Or when you look at a contract, maybe you deploy a contract that someone else has checked out. There have been instances where people were just relying on all these dependencies, and it works great if everyone is just happy and working together and trust each other. But eventually a bad actor might work their way into the system, try and start to steal money. So I think it did sort of push people to not blindly trust developers.
No, so obviously there's some good that came out of that, but in the meantime, it did affect a lot of people, a lot of projects, and a lot of holders. And I look back on the parity hack, and I remember it, Galen. I remember as someone who held one of the tokens of one of the projects that was that was it. Literally, their entire stash of ETH was involved in the parity. I guess you can call it a hack, the parity deletion. And I really, is hack even the right word?
Well, yeah, I guess you wouldn't really say hack. They gain control of the
calls
wallet.
It, obviously.
Yeah, they basically the money's still there, but they deleted the way to withdraw it. So everyone's money is still there, but nobody can get it.
It's kind of like the anti-hack, because you're literally making sure that nobody ever gets that money or that Ethereum.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just locked up and sitting there.
It really should be called the parity anti-hack. The parity vault. Sorry, folks. Yeah, I'm not trying to make light of this.
Maybe the parity freeze. It's essentially the money's just stuck.
All right, so let's transition to the DAO. All right, so DAO did get hacked to an extent, and it was a little bit more, I think, a lot more serious, but ultimately also led to something that was positive. But especially with your early involvement with Vitalik, kind of walk me through. Like, let's just put you as Vitalik. I mean, Galen, I know you as a friend, as I've mentioned on this interview several times. But like, I know how smart you are, and I know how much you care about people, and I know Vitalik was absolutely. I mean, he was trying to do something awesome for this space. I mean, I really believe that.
Absolutely.
I don't think he was trying to get rich. I don't think he even thought he was going to make money. And I don't mean to say that as I love Vitalik. I mean, Ethereum's got its problems, and we'll get to that in a second, because I have some questions about that. But let's honestly talk about the DAO hack, and let's talk about the bad and the good. Let's just start with the bad.
So the bad side is this one was probably a hack that was...
What was the DAO hack? Just let's overview that first.
So the DAO hack is someone figured out just a trick in how this smart contract was implemented, where they could siphon off some money. And just some background on the DAO itself. It was basically a smart contract you could put money into, and in exchange you would get tokens that you could use to vote. And it was this really cool concept. Like an organization, there are no stock certificates, there's nothing. By putting money in, you get to vote on how that money is spent, and maybe you get a return. So it's a very cool, I think, a pretty novel concept at the time.
Absolutely. I think it was probably the very first very first opportunity to have that thought process.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is a very cool concept. And then just unfortunately, due to some quirks in how the default methods work in Ethereum, someone was able to siphon off some money. So you can set up something in Ethereum where when you pay money to something, it executes code. Instead of calling a function, instead of invoking a contract, by sending money to something, you're invoking that contract.
Sure.
And people do this all the time for ICOs. They send money in and they get tokens back without having to do anything, or maybe they don't even need to set up MetaMask. This instance, they withdrew money, and when they withdrew it, it was calling a default method. And before it finished processing withdrawing money, that default method would call withdraw again. So before your balance dropped, maybe you withdrew 1 Ethereum, it would go to that thing, it would trigger it to withdraw another 1 Ethereum, trigger it to withdraw another 1 Ethereum, and it would keep calling recursively before your balance dropped the first time. So because of this, they just didn't handle the recursive case of that call correctly. Someone was able to siphon off a lot of money with a small withdraw and drain the contract.
So looking back on this, Galen, do you see this vulnerability that it was obviously exposed and obviously taken advantage of as, I would personally say it was a overall good thing, right? The amount of people, and obviously this led to Ethereum Classic and Ethereum now to where we are today. But looking back, man, like, was this something that was preventable, or did we need to make these mistakes prior to, where we are today to be able to understand this? Like, if you were the developer, if you're Vitalik, like, is this something that you look back and be like, I don't know how this happened. Like, I would have found this. And I know hindsight's 2020, and I know you would never talk bad about Vitalik on that level as far as like calling him stupid. Obviously the guy's genius, he came up with this brilliant idea. But when you hear about like the parity issue, or when you hear about the DAO, like, do you think about these things without hindsight being 2020 and very easily being able to say, oh, that was the dumbest thing ever, like a dumb redneck like myself would say, right? But do you see this as like honest and real issues that, that nobody could have seen coming? Or do you see these things as like, that was a little bit lazy?
So
Is that fair to
all
ask,
of these
by the way?
things, I mean, all of these things, I think it's so easy to talk about it now. Like, oh, why didn't you handle if someone was doing some weird recursive trick here on the withdraw method? It's so easy to say that knowing about it. But before you even think about it, someone just put up this contract quickly. Maybe they had different versions of it. And I don't think they had the best audit practices. It was a few people. They're all excited to do something new. Everyone was very enthusiastic about participating in it. Now, knowing about these types of issues, it would be a really bad mistake to make. Then I think somebody probably had to make that mistake so people would think about it.
No, Galen, I mean, like I said, looking back, hindsight's 2020, nobody's here to talk bad about Vitalik. I personally, cannot have an opinion on this. It would be irrelevant and it would be without just cause to even make a statement. But you've also been around long enough and you've been in this space and you've developed enough. You've built a lot of things, Galen, where what do you see the space going to? Like, we've learned from some mistakes. Some mistakes we're probably going to repeat, but like from the DAO, from the parity, from all this other bullcrap that we've seen, what is the state of the blockchain right now? I mean, clearly it's the best it's ever been. You don't have to say that. Every day it's getting better. But are we as advanced as you would hope so at this point, given that we've been around since Bitcoin and even before Bitcoin, because there was 4 different coins, trying to, I don't want to say compete, but Bitcoin obviously rose to the top, but there was 4 other blockchain style tokens, I guess you can call them. But we're 10 years into this, man, 10 and a half years. I mean, where do we stand, bro?
I mean, I think things are actually progressing along. It's hard to get a new system adopted. I mean, I would like to see more adoption, but Bitcoin, for something with no real leader, has gotten people all over the world to start using it, accepting it as payments, sending money around in and out of the country. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yep. I mean, not to mention the economic impact it can have for something like Argentina right now, right? Or excuse me, Venezuela. Excuse me, Argentina. My bad. But or Hong Kong right now, going through this little mini. I don't want to call it a revolution yet, but whatever they are doing. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I think if more countries seem to have like economic instability, people might turn to Bitcoin more. It's a really cool, I guess, phenomenon that's happened, that more people are using it. I think some things that people were able to ignore earlier on, like the transaction fees and times to confirm, are becoming more of an issue now. But solutions are starting to emerge. It's going a little bit slower than I would like, but I think it's coming along pretty nicely.
Absolutely.
And that one thing to clarify is that that's on the money side where I think it's come along. People are using it as money, sending transactions. That's actually done some really cool things. Where I think it needs a little bit of progress is people purported a bunch of other applications and use cases of those, and those really haven't been adopted yet outside of the money use case. There are some things where people have done some really cool DeFi type applications, but none of them have really caught on to the level of traditional solutions or anywhere close to that. I think that does need a lot of work.
Well said, Galen. Let me ask you a question. Of all the things that blockchain has accomplished and is doing right now, what do you find is going to be besides currency? Because obviously we understand that that's working right now to an extent. It may not be the most efficient in some circumstances, but there are solutions that have been created. We're just using Bitcoin still for the most part, and as I believe we should be. But what about outside of currency? What is the best use case that you can think of right now that exists that even if it's not happening yet, right? What should be happening with the blockchain that you can think about?
I really do think identity and approvals could theoretically work very well. Like a digital signature,
an example.
Similar to a multi-signature wallet where you're approving a transaction, you could approve something else to go through, or you could agree to share information with somebody.
Like what? Let's break it down. So simple.
you're agreeing to sell someone something, when you
Sure.
get a payment, or you're putting a signature on an agreement, or you are with the identity case, maybe you are proving you are someone, or that you authorize something to go through.
All right, Galen. So, I've really enjoyed this chat so far. And, between the parity hack, between, the DAO and the conversations that you brought to the table, man, you bring a lot of experience, you bring a lot of intelligence, you bring a lot of, just overall, just understanding that a lot of us never will. And most of us don't even care. Not me personally, but most people in crypto don't care. They're like, oh shit, my stuff got hacked. I hate the space. My private keys aren't on my own person. I can only blame myself, whatever. But, what we can say is that this space has offered a lot of fun, engagement, personalities, and really, friendships. That's my favorite thing is the relationships that I built, and watching people do things selflessly, not selfishly. And although I did bring up the fact that most of us a lot of times do things for selfish reasons, whether it's eat or whether it's go work a job so you can make money, whatever it might be, there's a lot of people doing really good things too. And you're one of those people, Galen, and I'm grateful to know you and consider you a friend. But let's have some fun here, okay? And I'm going to ask you, I do my quick fires, and I know you got to go soon, so I'm not going to hold you up too long, but we'll start with this, Galen, all right? And when I ask you these questions, you're allowed to pass. If you pass, though, I'm going to make fun of you on the next podcast, just so you know, all right? Fair?
All right.
Okay. All right. And I'm going to ask you, they might be a little bit difficult, and you could have a minute to think. They should be short answers. I don't want long, complicated developer answers. I know you're smart. You're smarter than me, and I'm okay with that. But I believe also that you're really like genuine and you're really real too. So I look forward to answer these questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and start right now. You ready?
Sure. Let's do it.
You sounded nervous. Do you know what I'm about to ask you? Do you believe in aliens?
Aliens could probably be out there. We haven't met them, I think.
Let me rephrase, because I want a more specific question or answer. Have aliens ever visited Earth?
I don't think so.
Ooh. I would ask you to expound, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to get that question from you. I'm going to get the extended answer at some point. You got to come back on my show at some point, right? All right. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Favorite movie of all time? I really like Lord of the Rings.
Oh, dude, Lord of the Rings. Absolutely. You're speaking my language. Which one?
Oh, I think probably the very first was the best, I would say. I still don't know if I can forgive them for cutting out some key characters from the books, but otherwise, I'm with it.
No, it's a classic. Tolkien is a hero to many of us of that generation, and hopefully for many more generations. But it was a great series. I would also agree that Lord of the Rings would be in my top 5. I don't want to even just say like number 1. It's so hard. I know. Sorry for the hard question. All right, number 3. Here's number 3 question. Who has been the most inspirational blockchain personality, developer, mentor in your life?
So I would probably say the number 1, just because he got me into it, is Vitalik. And he's always been very positive, like trying to get people to do cool things with Ethereum. He legitimately loves the space and isn't trying to make money off of it.
Agreed. You kind of look like a cooler version of Vitalik.
I'll take that as a compliment. Vitalik is great.
It absolutely is. Yes, he is. And of course, I'm not talking bad about Vitalik. That dude is Satoshi Jr. and he's got a lovely wife, and I guess he's got a newborn child now too. So he's doing dad life too, like me.
Oh, I actually had no idea. That's cool.
Yeah. So next question. If you were to buy a vehicle and it can't be a Lambo, what is your all-time number 1? I've got to have this car before I die.
Ooh, car that I got to have before I die. Probably maybe like a Tesla. I've been
That's
about
such a developer answer.
I don't know if I can go with a car that burns gas.
I was hoping you were going to say like a King Ranch F-150 Lariat, right? Just something awesome. Although I don't think you can have Lariat and a King Ranch, but bro, don't handle my tractor. No, Tesla is absolutely the future, and Elon Musk is one of my heroes. So nobody can be mad at you for that. And plus, you're not burning fossil fuels. So, all right, last question, and I'm gonna let you go. I know you got another call after this, and are you ready?
All right.
You know what this question is going to be. I gotta get you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Why don't you ask me a question first? Your turn. Hey, look, this is a PG show, by the way. You can say a cuss word here and there, but it can't be the F word or anything inappropriate.
I'm going to put the aliens back on you. Do you think aliens have ever visited Earth?
My answer is, are we not the aliens?
Oh, wow.
That's my answer. I mean, look, what else is like us on this planet, right? I mean, there's just, of course, we share primate, similarities and 98%, whatever. But why are we so different? And how come nothing else became so different?
Did
we just kill it?
Didn't some monkeys or gorillas? I don't know what the difference between the two is, but
you don't know the difference between monkeys and gorillas?
They're similar looking, right?
Hold on. Anyways, for those of you who couldn't see, I was doing the chess gorilla Tarzan, or not Tarzan, but King Kong, and I was then emulating a monkey by going underneath my armpits with my hands out, like I'm looking for, another monkey to play with. I don't know what monkeys do that for. Go ahead.
But my point, didn't some of those recently start building cultures around tools? I think that's how we define the Stone Age. So I think give some monkeys a really long span of time, and we might see some early humans come out of them.
But think about this. It didn't take humans to be that long to become humans.
Well, what is the time span of humans on the planet?
200,000 years.
200,000 years.
Yes. But before that, and we have this missing link, right? And look, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Do you like Star Trek?
Yeah, I've seen some.
Enough. Okay, some of them. I've seen all of them, and they were my favorite. Now, Star Trek visits many different cultures, many different alien species. And you know what the funny thing is about all these different alien species? Of course, they don't go visit the species that are just basic animals, right? They're not worried about insects that are 2 inches long. They're not worried about similar looking snakes. You don't interact with those people on the show. I'm sure if that universe actually existed and Jean-Luc Picard was actually studying all these different planets, there'd be a lot of things that just wasn't cool enough for TV. I get it, Jean-Luc. Okay. But what they go see is they see a lot of these different species, and all of them are humanoids. You know why? Because they're played by humans. And so they have to be but you don't ever see any 4-legged creatures or 8-legged creatures. Not like Star Wars, which has Jabba the Hutt. And then you got the androids, and then you got, some crazy looking thing, whatever. But all the Star Troopers are all humans. And what I think is funny is humans have this really weird idea about what intelligence is, because it's all we know is we think we're intelligent. We have no idea. What if they're interdimensional? Who knows what aliens might be? But I can tell you this. Do I think we're actually the aliens? No, I don't. But there's no reason why this species of humans that exists on this planet, that's a bunch of cancer to this planet Earth, is the only species that should have survived when we're kind of dumb, right? We're smart, we're intelligent, we'd go to the moon, supposedly, but we're still like Stone Age in our minds, right? I'm this is kind of a ramble. I'll stop now. All right, last question. You remember? I told you I had one more. What's your all-time number one? If you could not do anything else on planet Earth, what blockchain would you code?
Right now, Ethereum works great. You can do a lot with it. It would probably depend on what you're trying to do. I would say many things, Ethereum works great, and you could do it on Ethereum. Some things, if you're just sending constant updates, maybe Ethereum doesn't work. You come up with a workaround. You could do a different chain.
So would you say Ethereum's like the Swiss Army knife of blockchains?
Generally, there's a library. There's something out there to get whatever you want to get done on Ethereum. It works really well. It doesn't work fast, but it runs pretty well.
Well, nothing in life is fast. Everything is worth the wait, right?
For some applications, yeah. Sometimes you need to do something a little bit faster, or maybe you don't want to share data with everybody out there.
That's what Galen said.
For you.
That's what Earthquake said. Fair enough. All right. Now, on that same note, and this is really honestly the last question, Galen, and here it is. Will Ethereum scale?
People are figuring out creative ways to do it. I think it won't be like a single blockchain that everyone's writing all this code on. I think there are going to be a few different solutions there. I don't think it especially matters which one you use. I think there are going to be many solutions. Maybe Ethereum will do it. Maybe one of them will. You're
so safe. You're so safe. And I respect that, Galen. And I would expect nothing less. And you did a tremendous job. And I'm thankful for your company today. Look, Bitcoin Radio, it's not so often you're in the company of genius, but today you are. Galen Earthquake Danziger. Yep, I pinged it. It's mine. And I will always take credit. And if anybody ever calls you Earthquake again, I hope they do. I will be so grateful. You just got to text me and let me know someone called you Earthquake. Okay, Galen?
Sounds good. All right. Thanks for having me.
Radio. Absolutely. Until next time, you know what's up. You have to take care of this cryptoverse, folks, because if you don't, nobody else will. And we don't want the government to have to do it for us because that's why we're all here anyways. You take care of yourself. This is WBTC, where Bitcoin lives, and we'll see you next time.